where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Welcome to ABC-7 Extra Sunday. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Ross. Juvenile crime in El Paso decreased in 2024, according to data from the El Paso County Juvenile Justice Center. That's the good news. But assaults on family members by juveniles increased 21% from 2023 to 2024. 235 juveniles were referred to the juvenile justice system last year for assaulting a family member. And this year so far, there have been 77 of these offenses. We're looking at juvenile crime on tonight's Extra with our guests, El Paso County Attorney Cristina Sanchez, Jerome Washington, Commander of the Criminal Investigation Division of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, and Dr. Fernando Doval Perez, Assistant Professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Division of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at Texas Tech Health El Paso. And welcome to all of you. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
Ms. Sanchez, let's start with you. What types of juvenile crime cases does your office see the most?
Sure. So we have, of course, been seeing a lot of referrals on vaping, specifically because of the THC cases. We've also seen assaults, so that does not necessarily mean that there is a family member involved. And then, of course, we have also seen the family assaults that have come through our office this particular year. So we've seen that, and you were right where you say that the number of juvenile crimes have not increased, but what we're seeing is the seriousness of the types of crimes that are being referred to our office for prosecution.
Commander Washington, what would you say has led to this rise in juvenile assaults on family members in the county?
Well, I couldn't say that as one specific thing. I attribute some of it to the use of social media as an issue. I also believe pandemic may have been an issue as a contributing factor in the past, but to say it's one specific thing, no. My biggest observation would be just growth overall. I think the growth between the last few years, last 5 years, has been about 10%, but it's just, again, it's just more young children will becoming teenagers.
Okay, so it's just when you say the growth, you're referring to the growth of El Paso?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So, and you did mention, too, that you thought that the pandemic might have played a role. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I believe it's a little bit of a contributing factor. I mean, there was a time when the students were home and not able to actually attend school, which left them towards social media. I'm not demonizing social media, but it left to a different world to connect with others. But that can lead to cyberbullying and other issues, so I believe it's a contributing factor, but definitely not the main result.
And Dr. Doval, what are some of the key factors, in your view, that are contributing to juveniles engaging in violent behavior? And I want you to explain what adverse childhood experiences are.
Sure. So we always say in child psychiatry that a child or an adolescent that does well in 3 areas: at home, at school, and with friends. And when you have a challenge in one or more of these areas, that predisposes you to have challenges with your mental health, and it can predispose you to having legal problems as well. So things like, for example, having poor parental relationships, having poor supports from friends and family, not having meaningful activities after school, sports, church, right? Whether it's the big boys, big girls club, things like that. All of those things can predispose you to having issues later on. Same thing now with the advent of vaping. We have had big association now with substance use disorders in adolescents as well. All of these things can lead to that, as well as gang affiliation as well. Adverse childhood experiences are very important because since 1998, a big study came out showing that adverse childhood experiences are basically traumatic events that we experience during our childhood. And it can be something like losing a loved one, witnessing violence, right? Or even something as abuse or neglect. And all those things can stay with you, not only in your mind, spiritually, psychologically, but also in your body, physically, and predispose you to not only mental health, but also physical health problems down the line. And that's why realizing the effect that trauma can have on our children is very important to prevent crime.
Okay, and I notice you're nodding your head, Mrs. Kind of talk, Ms. Sanchez, about what you're seeing in your office as far as the kind of things that Dr. Doval mentioned.
Sure. So one thing to keep in mind in the juvenile justice system in general is that it is very much a different approach on how we address, right? Obviously, as our charge as a prosecutors, our charge at the end of the day is to ensure that justice is done. So that is ensuring that and balancing the safety of our community with the individual who may be involved, right? And so in this case, we have children that are involved, right? And these are kids between the ages of 10 to 16 that will be referred to the juvenile justice system, and which our office makes the determination as to whether or not we will move forward in prosecution. Now, because of that, because there is a different approach in terms of how we handle juvenile justice issues, all of the things that the doctor was talking about in terms of the mental health issues, the psychological effects, what have they been going through, what is their background, also understanding that they are children, they are still developing. Again, not excusing any of that behavior. We take our charge very seriously and we pursue charges very aggressively. However, you balance that in terms of having psychological assessments done when children come in. Those assessments are done by our juvenile justice department. So if a child is referred for any particular offense, anything ranging from a murder all the way down to assault, when they come in, that assessment is provided. Now that goes into a report that is then provided to our office, of course, to their defense lawyer, and then of course to the judge in the case to make determinations as to what we're going to do, how we're going to approach a particular case. The whole thought and idea of the juvenile justice system too is that, again, it is not the adult system, this is a juvenile system. So the background and the thought is there an opportunity here for a rehabilitation of the child? So there is a huge investment, for example, if a child ends up getting adjudicated, which means also in the adult world convicted, but we use the term adjudicated in the juvenile justice system, whether or not that particular child can be provide services to, whether that's mental health services, whether that's sending them to an out-of-home facility so that they receive those services. But again, ensuring that they do receive those services for the brief period of time that they're in the system, and to also ensure that they are held accountable for the actions that they have been committed. So part of that rehabilitation is receiving those services, acknowledging what they do. Sometimes it does not work. Oftentimes that does not work. We see them reoffend and we see them go on to the adult system. But if we have them from this brief period of time, those assessments are done and we take those into account.
And Commander Washington, you are working closely with the county attorney's office on these types of juvenile cases. Expand on that if you would.
Yes, sir, that is very correct. Pretty much any case that the sheriff's office initiates will eventually, if it is involving a juvenile, will eventually go to the county attorney's office for prosecution. So we do work directly with them. There are attorneys that Ms. Sanchez has that work directly with our personnel to ensure our investigations are done properly. And also we are looking into helping with any type of intervention that we possibly can as well.
All right, I have a question for all of you here, and we've touched on this in this first segment. How does exposure to violent or criminal content on social media, such as trends or challenges, and violence in video games, how does that affect juvenile behavior? Ms. Sanchez, I'll start with you.
Sure, and I'm going to answer this question also from a personal perspective. I'm the mother of 2 teenagers, both in high school now. So I understand social media a little bit, right? You know, they have cell phones, they have access to laptops and iPads. A lot of the content that they are seeing and are viewing, quite violent in some cases, right? We know that there are video games out there as well. Not to place blame on one certain media or forum, but it's out there as well. And so I do believe, and when we're talking about, you know, kids that were in the pandemic, you lived in this realm of like staying in one room, staying in one home, and your outlet and your socialization was social media. So how is it that they are not exposed to those things, that they are not influenced, right, by some of what they are viewing? I mean, you see a lot of, you know, even UFC fighting, this MMA fighting, very violent, very aggressive. And so you have this output from them in some instances where that is what they know. And then, of course, going back to what the doctor said, also how they have what they've been accustomed to, or what they've also, their environment that they have been in throughout their whole life as a youngster, right? We know that there is domestic violence cases that are out there that are handled at the adult system as well. But we're seeing it at this young age, and really our charge, I think, all of us that are sitting here, also as a community, is to ensure that we address that properly. It's a serious issue so that it doesn't get to that point where they have and continue to have these unhealthy, violent relationships as adults.
Commander Washington, from your perspective?
Yes, well, I can say, you know, for myself, I haven't come across specifically a study that shows scientific evidence that video games influence criminal behavior, but I do agree from my experience, it is mostly social media. I don't want to demonize it, but I feel like because of the current trends, the challenges, it kind of gives this attention seeking to the young juveniles where it almost kind of gives them the impression that there are no consequences for that type of behavior. So what ends up happening is when they are engaged in the social media, it tends to lead to where I can do this because others are doing it, because look at how much attention they're getting from it. I read a recent Gallup poll that young teens spend about 4 hours or more a day on social media. So again, I'm not trying to demonize it, but I do believe that that is a big factor more than it.
Dr. Toval, your perspective?
Yes, I think the biggest thing that it boils down to is something called desensitization, where we see something enough, the effect that we usually have to not do that behavior goes away, right? And that's what happens with adolescents and with children. If they see something enough, they're going to want to do things like that. They're not going to have that sense of stopping themselves that they had if they had not seen it enough. And so that's why I think that social media, while it can be a very good and powerful thing, it also has to be something that has to be monitored appropriately by the parents, by schools, right? And with together with the child and adolescent, so they can learn how to maneuver social media appropriately.
Which family member is most likely to be a victim of juvenile violence? We'll answer that question. Our discussion continues after the break. Stay with us. You're watching ABC 7 Extra Sunday.